On Monday, December 3rd, 2007, torrential rains and heavy winds caused extensive damage throughout the Pacific Northwest region. One of the hardest hit areas was the town of Vernonia. This was one of the worst storms experienced in decades. One of the residents of Vernonia happened to be one of my oldest and closest friends, Jerry Myers, and his partner, LaDonna. Jerry was interviewed significantly by local media, but we kind of felt that his story wasn't being told completely.
When I did that one with Oregonian in 16, 12, and the stock footage guy, I kept saying things like, well, the guy was limp and half drunk heading into the swirling water. Well, I no wonder the guy used it.
This short film and others like it will attempt to correct that record and allow Jerry and LaDonna to speak in their own voices.
Well, we were sitting at the water's edge, and there's cones and police ribbons and everything, and this guy heads into it, with his big fishing waders up to here and his heavy down jacket, and he's heading down toward the river. So I put the spotlight on him ahead of him just so he could see just exactly how the current was swirling like the toilets do in front of him, And this is where the rescue boats had been coming back in. It was the closest place they could land, and he's heading into it. So I kept putting a light on him, and I could see him, go from one pole, kind of pull himself to it, and then limp across to the next one and drop the pole. Well, when he did that, he stepped up and slipped in the slime, the mud, and the whatever, that was on the curb. And when he slipped, he only had this hand on the pole, he flipped this way into the current. And it filled them, the waders must have went, you know what I mean? And he was gone. And there's no way he could hold against it, So apparently as he was being swept downriver, he grabbed onto some various branches and trees as they went by. And I imagine waders were kind of like a big old parachute, trying to drag him downstream. And the trees were probably bowed pretty good. But it isn't as dumb as me saying, where are you and all that, and like expecting an answer, third tree from the 6th telephone pole on the left. Hurry. But it really did bug me when the closer we got, man. You could hear his voice, just the decibel level going down.
And then the water got too deep.
Yeah, and man, that gets freaky. So, but like when they pulled him in, that other vet that was there with me, yeah, they said that he was totally nearly done. He was so hypothermic that he couldn't even use his muscles to get into the boat, But so I have to watch saying the limping, half-drunk guy, because apparently I might be slandering or live-lighting, or what do they call it?
Do you think he was intoxicated?
Oh, I very little doubt he. Well, okay. I say that
it's not slander if it's true.
Right, if he was bouncing off the walls, but that could have been he was
Well,
limping
you
too.
said
So
you said that he was limping a little bit before this all happened.
right, see, so I couldn't tell.
So
Maybe
who's
his
to say that
disability
he
or whatever.
had a bad ankle or a short leg.
Right, but he bounced off the wall a couple times, so
Well,
I
that
thought.
helps, but.
Right,
But,
But you'd get me stressed after a while, and I bet I'd be clinging to walls and posts too. So, if my leg wore out. But no, I just, being the old cop, you got how many seconds you got to, decide what's going on here. And to me, it was a limping drunk guy heading in with big oversized waders into the current. That's what I told dispatch too. So I guess I libel myself on NCIC too. Then they drug him out of there, and they never did tell us his name. There's a couple of people down there when they do the intake were saying, "Weren't you guys drug him out?" And I go, "Yeah, what was his name?" She goes, "I heard, but I don't remember." She said, "I'm going to find out." But I wonder if that ain't why they didn't play this interview with Steffi, because I said the limp and half drunk. The poor man with the waders, and they probably would have showed it, But I rescued the limp and half drunk that got swept away. I couldn't believe it, and the bar was closed, right for the flood. The water's up to your knees, right? So they took and put prop surfboards up against the bar and were posing in the flood, and then as the water got higher, they swooped the surfboards out of there and left. But all night long, even after midnight, there were crowds of people walking to the door to see if the goddamn place was open. Because they had kerosene lamps on inside, the light power's off. I guess the beer would still been cold. And they said the next day came in power washers, blasted it all out the front door, Cloroxed the shit out of it. By 4 p.m. they were serving booze again.
Seems weird.
Yeah, but it was weird. The temperature kept going up as the more it flooded. I'm sitting down there sweating like a pig. It's 71 degrees, climbing to 72 at midnight.
It was 78.
Was it 78 finally? I'm sweating like mad in here this night, the winter time in a flood, and you think, you know, it's getting hot. Yeah, that was weird. That was the thermal mass, you know, that was weird. Yeah, that was something else. Well, the one officer that was down there on the water's edge with us, I saw him today, and then I saw the chief of police too, and I told him that, you know, that as far as I'm concerned, they did a great job, and shook their hands, told them thanks and all that. But when it really came down to it, there's such ironies, or I don't know what you call it. There were, on our side, 3 police officers, maybe less than a half dozen around in there, volunteer firemen, you know, for the rural one, and then maybe off and on 8 or so, just totally volunteer. And that's who worked every minute of the flood from the high water. For the greater part was volunteers, and therefore a lot of them that knew the special need people from the senior center went out and rescued them. They're all volunteer too. But it's funny how the people who were doing the things that were needed at the moment and within the hours that took place until it receded were basically a handful of police officers and firefighters, and most of those volunteer, and pure just outright volunteer. And it's so ironic.
Most of those were disabled.
Quite true, you bet. And it's most ironic because now I can see the difference from the media when all of the FEMA, HUD, fire marshal, you can go down and just about go through the alphabet soup, and they do the stock footage of the victims in their homes and such. But when it comes right down to it, they had the one HUD guy come through, and it was like a little stampede of media going to him, you know, heading with the pens and pads and the digital recorders and cameras and all that. And it's funny how, when the truth was, those who were the heroes that were there at the moment, other than maybe 1 or 2 that I would suspect would be sought out and interviewed, like the chief of police or something like that, or the ones, you know, in official positions. But other than that, that amazes me. You know, the looky-loos, the media, how they go to these people. And then I mean, yeah, that's your job to go and respond to those things, but I think that if somebody was asking me questions about the event and I just rolled in my, you know, like a day and a half later in my super camper or whatever, I think I'd feel a little guilty about answering them. The thing was, we were listening in on them, you know, with our little scanner there, and after we'd had our interview and then went back in there to try to take care of whatever else we had to do, I heard them on the scanner, and they're saying, all officers will not respond to media until such time as we are able to put together a media release. Is that clear? Over. You know what I mean? They don't want them interviewing any of us anymore. Because that ain't where the tax money flows. And it's sad. Did you catch any of them on their archive or anything like that? Or the
Videos?
Yeah,
I looked, I couldn't find them.
They had that Vernonia sign on 26 there, it points to Vernonia, and then that field was full of water from the rain, right? So it kind of looked like that was part of the flood. Say, over here, over here. All right, line up with the sign. Yeah. No, the flood's actually over here. I shouldn't say anything. That one cameraman, he was always the one left behind, you know, loading the gear and all that. I said to him, this ought to be funny, the toothless veteran gets on TV.
Well, now you're gonna be on
Yeah,
YouTube.
but so did I.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So did our.
More real people, more like